I used to get stuck on edits all the time, and I thought at the time that it was a skill issue or that I just wasn't at the level that I thought that I was. But then I realized that the real problem was that I was over editing my videos, and these 5 techniques completely changed the way that I started approaching my videos. First on the list is what I'm calling Keyframe Flash. The idea behind this is that you take clip A and you take clip B. In the last 2 frames of clip A, you will keyframe an exposure increase. And on the first 2 frames of clip B, you'll do the reverse. So start off high and then go back to normal. Now there's no rules with this. I tend to just do 2 frames on either side because it makes it quite quick and quite subtle, but depending on what your personal preferences are, you can extend that out to 4 frames or 5 frames depending on what length of flash you want and how long you want that to linger for. The other variable in this is depending on how intense you want the flash to be, you can increase the exposure of the flash or decrease it to make it more subtle. Again, there's no rules with how you use this. You can make it brighter, you can make it softer, you can make it last longer, you can make it quicker. It all depends on the project that you're working on. The only rule that I will suggest implementing is using this technique sparingly. I've seen a lot of people recently overusing the keyframe flash, and at a point it does get quite repetitive, and you can really tell when someone is using it as a crutch for their edit. I found out about whip pan transitions a few years ago, and over the past couple of years I've been trying to slowly integrate the technique into different projects and test out where I can use it and how it suits my personal style. Okay, I'm going to use the FX3 here as an example. Please do ignore the lens that I've got on this. In order to get these filler transitions, you essentially want to be on quite a tight focal length and find something that looks interesting, whether it's a texture, whether it's a shadow on the floor, or an interesting backdrop. You want to hold the camera really tight against that. Once you've found the texture or the backdrop that you want to point the camera at, it's really simple. You just wave the camera around really erratically. You can go as psychotic as you want. It doesn't matter that it's going to be completely out of focus. It's going to not matter that it's going to be motion blurred. That's the point. You want it to look motion blurred. You want it to look out of focus. Essentially what we're trying to achieve is finding textures in that footage that we're going to capture. This is something that I just do out of habit now at every single shoot, just in case I need it during the edit, because it can be a very valuable asset to have when I'm going through the final edit and trying to figure out how to transition between scenes. If you really want that motion blurred look to the footage, you can also lower your shutter speed in order to get that really textured, streaky look as you whip the camera around. Some things that I do like to do to these little filler clips in other instances is making them black and white, adding film grain, distorting them a little bit, reversing the video, stretching them out, just playing around with the look of the clip, because you can get some really funky looking visuals out of just messing around with these little filler clips. This is one that I don't use very often, but the scrape and blend is something that I fall back on when I'm really struggling with finding a transition or finding something to layer over a video as a texture. The idea of this is that I'll use pretty mundane clips, so static shots of features or little accent shots. If I'm wanting to use these individual shots in a video but it's not working with the pacing that I've set, I can use the scrape effect in Final Cut Pro to essentially scrape the static shot away from the scene in order to reveal something else. To add an extra layer of texture, I'll usually change the blend mode of the clip. And this is once again a use of keyframes. I will make sure that the video scrapes across the video from one keyframe to another keyframe so that there's a little bit of dynamic movement going on in something that is usually a static. So crash zooms have been around for years and years and years. They were popularized by spaghetti westerns back in the day. But I find that they don't get used as much as I think they should get used. I've only used crash zooms a couple of times. I don't overdo it, and I think it needs to feel deliberate rather than just a gimmick. Basically with crash zooms and the way that I use them, there's 2 different methods to create a crash zoom transition. The first method is by swapping lenses in the middle of the movement. So let's say there's something on top of the roof across the road from the office that I want to zoom in on, but I want to use a crash zoom. I would start off by using a 24-70 and quickly zooming in as far as I could. And then to finish the transition, you want to swap to something that's got a longer focal length, but is also a zoom lens. So in our case, it would be the 70 to 200mm lens. You want to repeat the movement and finish off at the desired focal length. Then in the edit, the motion blur from the zoom can be used as a cut point to cut the two clips together, and you can tweak that to make it look as smooth as possible, but it essentially creates this fake crash zoom. The second method that I use in order to get the crash zoom look is by just completely faking the whole crash zoom thing altogether, kinda. If I'm running with very limited gear, which is usually the case, we usually carry the 24-70 with us at all times, what we will do is set 2 points for the camera to be and repeat the zoom motion twice. So in position A, you zoom into where you want to end up, and then after you've done that, you want to move the camera to position B and do the same thing and finish off where you were planning on zooming into. It's essentially the same as the previous method, but this one just relies on less gear. Now this one is a little bit more limited in use cases because you can only really shoot along a flat plane. You can't really shoot up to buildings or shoot down from a building. Again, with this one, I wouldn't overdo it or overuse it. It's something that could be used in moderation. Okay, so the last technique comes from a place of just growing the fuck up and maturing. I used to hate shooting things with a tripod. Now, I hated the way that static shots looked. I hated the movement that you would get out of a tripod. I used to think that it looked cheap, it looked amateur. I hated it so much. But more recently, I've started using tripods, and I think it's paired well with the fact that I've found a new love for video postcards. And by utilizing video postcards, I've started integrating tripods and similar movements into the videos that I'm creating on a commercial level. I also think just using tripods in general for static shots is a good opportunity to just manage the flow of a video. You can really control the way that a video flows just by inserting a couple of static shots and slowing down for a second. And if you pair them with sound effects or other transitions or overlays, you can create something that feels really intentional and can also just feel very personal to you. These are just a couple of the things that I use day to day when making videos. I don't use them in every single video, and sometimes they just don't work in the project that I'm working in, but I think that's the beauty of what we're doing in the video industry. We just trial and error different things. Most of what we do is just trial and error, and no one really knows what they're doing. We all just want to create cool and interesting things, and trying out these new things is how we're going to grow and develop as creatives. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning into another video. I did take a couple of weeks off just because we're about to go into the filming for the game project that I'm working on, which I will hopefully have some videos about in the near future. If you also work in the video industry and you have some techniques that you have integrated into your workflow in order to improve your videos, then feel free to share it in the comments. I'm always looking to find new perspectives on video creation, and hopefully some of these techniques have gotten through to some people and you might use them in your next project. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video, which will come out at some point soon, maybe. Bye.